Hello students, welcome to Dr. Deepa Dahake's NEET Biology, and in today's session we are begins with new chapter Mineral Nutrition from Class 11 Plant Physiology Unit. So what is mineral nutrition? When we use the term mineral nutrition, so sometime in mind question is raised whether the nutrition is related with organic compounds or with inorganic compound. So here you remember when we study the mineral nutrition in plant, so mainly these nutrients are the raw material for the synthesis of food during the process of photosynthesis. Therefore, mineral nutrition, you always remember, it is a type of inorganic plant nutrition. That means the inorganic minerals or inorganic nutrients predominantly in the form of ions, either they absorb from the soil or they obtain from water and carbon dioxide. So that we study. So one thing you clearly keep in mind, mineral nutrition means we are going to study about the inorganic plant nutrients. Now the first time scientist name is provided here, Julius von Sack. Year you remember 1800, century you remember 19th century. So Julius von Sack is a German botanist and he was first time observed if the mineral nutrients are mixed in water in a specific amount. So the solution of mineral salt or mineral nutrient is formed and that solution is capable to provide a healthy growth of the plant. And by the series of experiment, finally it is proved the plant will be grow in a healthy condition even in absence of soil, and the new technique of plant cultivation is developed. That new technique is called as hydroponics. So for objective purpose, you remember the name of the scientist, you remember the year, as well as you remember most important that the German botanist. Now what is hydroponics? Hydroponics, simply you remember the soil-less culture. That means when we go towards the hydroponics, we never use the soil. Without soil, plants are to be cultivated in the solution of mineral nutrients. Now what kind of solution? This solution is a balanced solution, and this balanced solution contain the amount of different essential elements which are required for the healthy growth of that particular plant species. So simply hydroponics, you remember the technique of growing plants in a nutrient solution without using soil. That's why one term you remember, the soil-less culture is also called as hydroponics. Now, what is the requirement of hydroponics? Two basic requirements are there. As it is, I follow the NCERT for this. So, you remember two basic requirements. What are the requirements? The requirements are the purified water as well as the mineral nutrient salt. So, these two are the major requirement for the process of hydroponic or culturing the plants by the method of hydroponics. In addition to that, regular supply of air. So air pump is required. Another pump is required to maintain the movement or the regular movement in this mineral solution. But the two major requirements, the purified water and the mineral nutrient salts, are for the hydroponics. Now what purpose or for what reason we use this method? So mainly this method we use to identify essential elements. Suppose आप अपने garden में you want to grow any of the plant, or if you have a very large crop field and over those crop field आपको अगर एक particular type of crop को cultivate करना है, so first आपका aim होगा कि what kind of nutrients are required for the healthy growth of that crop. Because of that we can get maximum yield from that crop field. So therefore first purpose है आपका hydroponics का. With the help of hydroponics we identify essential element, that how many essential element in what amount or what quantity they required for the healthy growth of the plant. Second, you remember we identify the deficiency symptoms. How one can identify deficiency symptoms? Suppose for any of the species, suppose the species is A, and for that A species, the 10 elements are essential. So you prepared one solution in that all the 10 elements are present in appropriate amount, and after that the 10 different solutions you prepare in different beakers और in different systems में आप prepared करते हैं, and in every solution one element is deficient. So suppose in first solution the potassium is deficient solution, the second solution is deficient in nitrogen, third solution is deficient in phosphorus. So when plants are growing in such particular deficient solution, so you can easily observe the deficiency symptoms of the individual element. So here these two aim you remember, or for what purpose we predominantly use the hydroponics. Now we study, this is most important part, that what are the plants which predominantly cultivated by using the hydroponic method. So you remember tomato, lettuce and seedless cucumber. These are the three common plant or common examples which can be developed or cultivated by using the method of hydroponics. So this much you remember for the introduction of the mineral nutrition as well as for the hydroponics. Now we come towards the criteria for essentiality. Criteria for essentiality when we study, so here mainly we study there are 17 essential elements. Now on the what basis we say the element is essential or non-essential? For that the criteria are provided, and it is the criteria for identification of the element to be essential or non-essential. So there are three major criteria with the help of which we can identify. First criteria or the first feature, that the absolutely necessary, that means the element which is said to be essential, that essential element must be necessary or absolutely necessary for what purpose it is necessary. It should be necessary for the normal growth and healthy growth of the plant. Secondly, it is necessary absolutely necessary for reproduction. So here sometimes slip of tongue, continuously बात करते ठीक है, so forget about that. So absolutely necessary आप याद रखिए, it required for normal growth as well as it required for reproduction. That means कि suppose the element is deficient, so due to deficiency of element the normal growth of the plant is affected, as well as the seed set is not formed. Seed set not formed का meaning है in angiosperm when reproduction is not take place, the formation of seed is automatically stop, because आप आगे क्लास 12th में पढ़ते हैं आप कि seed is the ultimate product of fertilization. So when reproduction is not take place due to deficiency of the any of the essential element, then automatically the seed set or seed formation is stop in plant. So this you remember, with the help of this you can identify whether the element is essential or unessential. Second हम study करते हैं, the element is said to be essential when this element is specific and non-replaceable. Specific in terms, specific का meaning है कि this element is specific for a particular reaction in plant, as well as it is non-replaceable. That means it is not like that कि potassium अगर plant में deficient हुआ है, so you can increase the amount of calcium ion or calcium. So the deficiency of potassium is overcome by increasing the amount of calcium. So you remember the element should be specific. That means it related with a particular requirement and particular reaction, metabolic reaction, as well as the element cannot be replaced by any another element. So this part you remember. Third है, the element is directly involved in metabolic reaction. That means the element is directly involved in photosynthesis. It directly involved in respiration, aerobic respiration, number of metabolic reactions you studied in plant. So all those metabolic reactions are only take place at a normal rate when that particular element is present in a specific amount as well as in sufficient amount. So these three criteria, because from these three criteria generally question is asked that which of the following is not a criteria for essentiality of element. So these 3 points you remember for the essentiality. This point is mainly important. What is the absolute necessity? Absolute necessity का meaning है the element is required for normal growth as well as it required for the reproduction. Now we come towards the division or the types of nutrient element. So here you remember when we study about the nutrients that in terms we study macronutrients and micronutrients के form में आप study करते हैं. So predominantly you remember there are total 17 essential elements, and these 17 essential elements, students, you remember broadly divided into two categories, macronutrients and micronutrient. Now what do we understand? Meaning से clear है आप सभी को? Macronutrient means the nutrient which is required, common terms में आप कहते हैं nutrient which required in large amount, macro, and which is required in very less amount, that is called as micro. Micronutrients are also called as trace element when they required in very less amount. Secondly, though they required in very less amount, but you remember they are essential for the normal growth of plant, because if this minute quantity, whatever minute quantity अभी हम देखते हैं, so whatever minute quantity or in trace quantity they required, if that much quantity is not present in soil, so again these elements also affect the healthy growth or normal growth and reproduction of the plant. So that thing you remember. Now when we define they required in large amount and they required in less amount, that means how much amount, one line is there according to which we define the nutrients are macro and micro. So here you remember this amount, that when the nutrient is required, most important thing, when the nutrient is required in excess of 10 millimole per kilograms of dry matter, then that element is called as macronutrient. When the element is required less than 10 millimole per kilogram of dry matter, so more than 10 millimole macronutrient, less than 10 millimoles, then it is called as micronutrient. Now here the question is raised, what is dry matter? Dry matter का meaning होता है कि when we want to take a dry matter, so first we take a fresh weight of the plant and then we go towards the dry weight of the plant. Fresh weight, you simply pull the plant or remove the root and take entire plant. The plant is cut down into small pieces. Generally herbaceous plant के लिए method use होता है. For tree we never use this method of dry collection. ठीक है, dry matter का. So normally you pull the herbaceous plant, you remove the soil from root and roots become cut off, and then we take a fresh weight of that herbaceous plant. After that, that herbaceous plant is placed for 24 to 48 hours in microwaves or ovens are there in laboratory. So entire water is get evaporated, and after 24 to 48 hours you take a final weight, and whatever difference fresh weight and final weight में आता है, that is the amount of water which is present, and by this method you take the dry matter of the plant. Sometime ash analysis is also used, but ash analysis आप study करते हैं. Ash analysis we use to detect the presence of element in that particular plant. So with the help of dry matter we can find out whether the nutrient is macronutrient or micronutrient. Now here the categories of nutrient, कि how many nutrients or what kind of nutrients are required in excess or more than 10 millimoles per kilogram of dry matter. So here you remember, ये आपको याद करना पड़ेगा. So this you remember as it is, you mug up all these things, that carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium and magnesium. These are the these are the nutrients. These nutrients, 9 nutrients है, 9 nutrient out of 17 you remember. 9 nutrients are macronutrients, and among these 9 nutrients, most important part, among these 9 nutrients, macronutrients, carbon, hydrogen and oxygen is obtained from water and carbon dioxide. But rest of these elements or nutrients, that is nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium and magnesium, these are absorbed by the roots from the soil. So this part you keep in mind, 9 nutrients are macronutrient, you remember this part. And secondly, first 3 carbon, hydrogen, oxygens are obtained from the water and carbon dioxide. Now we come towards the micronutrient, nutrients which are essential, required less than 10 millimole per kg of dry matter or dry weight are called as trace element. अब यहाँ पे देखिए how many trace elements are there. तो trace element अगर आप यहाँ पे study कर रहे हैं, so here you remember these all are iron, manganese, copper, molybdenum, zinc, boron, chlorine and nickel. These elements are comes under the micronutrient. तो ये part आपको याद रखना है. Only this much part you remember, exactly you go through in this way only. And after that we study what are the 4 broad categories, because when we say the 17 elements are essential, that means these 17 elements according to their role in plant metabolism, they divided into 7 broad categories. So what are these 4 broad categories of these 17 essential elements? So here you remember the first category of the element is the structural element. Structural element means the elements, ये अब तो माइंड में रहेगा ही नहीं कि whether they are non-essential, because we now only study about the essential element. The chapter is also related with the only essential 17 essential element. So here you remember structural element means the elements which are participate in the formation of biomolecules by which the cells are formed. Biomolecules, carbohydrate, protein, fats आप study कर रहे हैं, amino acid study करते हैं, all these are comes under the biomolecules. So for the formation of biomolecule, some basic frame element भी कहते हैं इनको, basic frame elements are required. So these you remember carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. Carbohydrate आप पढ़ते हैं CnH2ON. So carbohydrate पढ़ रहे हैं, fat study कर रहे हैं, protein study किया करते हैं आप. So all these are the formed by the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Nitrogen you remember, nitrogen as a essential element is only present in protein. So nitrogen is the structural element only of protein. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen are the structural element as they are present in all the biomolecules. This part you remember. Second है आपका energy related compound. Energy related compound means the elements which are required in energy generation processes और energy compounds के formation में. So here when we study the pigment chlorophyll in plant, so in chlorophyll you remember exactly in the center of chlorophyll magnesium ion is present. So magnesium ion is required for the chlorophyll formation, and if chlorophyll is absent, so the radiant energy cannot be converted into the chemical energy, और जो photosynthesis का process है by which light energy convert into the chemical bound energy, that cannot be take place. So magnesium you remember. Secondly for the ATP adenosine triphosphate आपको क्या required है, phosphorus. So these two example, this part is more important for your competitive purpose. because number of examples are provided in this part. So all those example you remember very well, which element is essentially required or related with what kind of the reactions. So energy related compound, 2 examples provided, magnesium in chlorophyll and phosphorus is required for the synthesis of adenosine triphosphate. Third is activator and inhibitor. When we use the term activator and inhibitor, that means you one line remember, these are the elements which are related with the enzyme's activity. So for the activation of enzyme or for the inhibition of enzyme, some of the mineral elements are required. These nutrient elements either function as activator or they function as inhibitor. Activator mainly you remember, most important magnesium photosynthesis. Already we studied the photosynthesis. So in C3 cycle we required the Rubisco enzyme, and in C4 cycle peptase or PEP carboxylase enzyme is required for carboxylation process. तो here you remember activator and inhibitors जब हम study कर रहे हैं, so magnesium ion you remember, magnesium ions are predominantly play role of activator for the Rubisco enzyme in C3 plants or C3 cycle and peptase in C4 cycle or C4 plant. Secondly, the molybdenum, most important. If you go through the last year question papers for mineral nutrition, this question is repeatedly asked. For the activity of nitrogenase, which of the mineral nutrient or which of the nutrient is required? So here you remember molybdenum is essentially required as an activator for the enzyme nitrogenase. Nitrogenase is responsible for the fixation of nitrogen. That means the nitrogen can convert into ammonia when the active nitrogenase is present. So this part you remember. And now the fourth is for osmotic potential. When we study for osmotic potential, so here you remember osmotic potential means the cell turgid cells are required in plants as well as in all the living beings for the proper metabolic reactions. And turgidity of the cell is only maintained when the cell is osmotically maintained or osmotic gradient of the cell is maintained. And to maintain that osmotic gradient, one and only ion is required that we study in transpiration. So students who are new for this session, those students can go through the link provided above for the process of opening and closing of stomata. So here you remember potassium ions are predominantly required to opening and closing of stomata because they play a significant role in turgidity and flaccidity of the guard cell. So these four features you remember, these are the four broad categories of element according to which the 17 different elements are divided. So for this much you remember as an introductory part of this chapter. So one time you can go through this entire part, and for today's session I summarize this part that first again mineral nutrition means inorganic nutrition. Hydroponics is discovered due to the work of Julius Monsack. Hydroponic means soilless culture you remember. By this method you can identify which are the essential element and what are the deficiency in plant or deficiency symptoms caused by that particular element. Secondly, the three predominant crops one can obtain by hydroponics, that is tomato, lettuce and seedless cucumber. Criteria for essentiality, so you remember they are absolutely necessary for the normal growth and reproduction. Secondly, they are specific and non-replaceable. And third, they are directly involved in the process of metabolic reactions. Okay? This part as it is provided, you can take a screenshot of this part also and you make your own note also. Okay? So for today's session, I finished this mineral nutrition up to this. In next session, we study the different 17 elements, macro and micro elements classification. We study that in what way they are absorbed, in which part of the plant these elements are present, and what are the deficiency symptom of these elements. So If you have any doubts, feel free to ask those doubts, and if you want to study any new topic, so you can also mention in comment box. So first we complete the mineral nutrition and then we switch over to the new topic. Okay, by that time, stay blessed, stay motivated, subscribe my channel, like my videos, and stay connected with Dr. Deepa Dahake's NEET Biology.